What is the maker movement? I've always considered myself as a maker. I recall as a kid making things. When I was old enough to hold a soldering iron, I recall making things with vacuum tubes. The first toy I recall asking for was a toy electric vacuum cleaner. I'm not sure why I wanted it, except that it was electric and I could take it apart. The next toy I recall getting was a Gilbert erector set. Not nearly as sophisticated as a microprocessor learning kit, but it was a mechanical engineering challenge. Last year, one of the members of our Eyes on Longmont TV production group saw an ad in the paper for the Loveland Maker Fair and thought that we should take a camera and go. I attended, and while there, I learned there is a maker group here in Longmont called the TinkerMill, and they have meetings every Tuesday at 7 o'clock. So I had to go to the TinkerMill and found out what this maker movement is all about.
Eyes on Longmont, offering a diversity of topics about our community that will inform and entertain you. We invite you to sit back and enjoy this edition of Eyes on Longmont.
We live in an age of science. The most famous name in toys is known throughout the world. Erector, the all-steel construction set for beginners, for young builders, for junior engineers. 4 generations of American youth have grown up with Erector, the toy that has become as much a part of our life as baseball and hot dogs. Erector has exciting appeal for all boys. Every boy has a natural curiosity about electricity. What makes the lights go on? Why does a motor run? How does a battery store energy? Gilbert electrical engineering sets provide the answers. First step in building a motor is winding the armature. And this boy is rediscovering a basic fact of science, that through a system of coils and magnets, electrical energy is converted to mechanical energy that can do 1,000 useful things. The world of electronics is the world of radar and sonar, of guided missiles and television and countless other wonders. It is also the world of Gilbert electronic sets. These tiny precision parts, resistors, capacitors, diodes, potentiometers, are the same as those used in satellite guidance systems and giant computers. Easy-to-follow templates and numbered parts make electronic building fun for all ages, and quick, too. In just 10 minutes, these youngsters will put together a complete working radio.
To help me get answers to the question, what is the maker movement, I attended a Tuesday night meeting at the TinkerMill. There, I met with several members and asked a bunch of questions.
So a little bit about the maker movement. It really started in Europe back in about the mid-aughts, about 2004, 2005. And you saw a group called the Chaos Computer Club decided that they wanted a place to hack, to make computer things and to work on stuff together as a group. So they rented a space and they put all of their gear in there. It just sort of grew from there and became other types of people, like people that did crafty types of things, and people that did artsy kinds of things, and people that liked hardware and robotics. And pretty soon it started to kind of all come together. In about 2007-ish, 2006, 2007, a bunch of Americans went over and toured several dozen of these that were happening in Europe at the time, and said, we have to do this in America. And they brought it back here in New York, San Francisco, Chicago, and I believe Ohio. were the places where the first hackerspaces started. And Denver was shortly after that. DenHack was one of the earliest hackerspaces. So that's really where it started. And it's just, now it's up to 4,000 hackerspaces internationally. And there's somewhere around between 800 and 1,200 that I know of in the United States, like TinkerMill, which is a nonprofit standalone entity. There's also hackerspaces popping up in schools, popping up inside of libraries, inside of for-profit co-working spaces. They're all over the place.
TinkerMill is a hackerspace, creator space. It's a community space run by people from the community. We get together and we pitch in and help teach each other, help teach the community. And also, as a secondary thing, we pitch in together and buy the big toys, the big tools that we can't afford on our own.
I first learned about open data, hacking, hackathons from a professional development class I took at the National League of Cities conference in Boston. The course, I think, was titled Open Data, and it had great people from around the country talking about how they've used data, simple things that people just hadn't connected with before. And they built an app while we were in the class. But then I also learned that there are many cities that have chief innovation officers who have hacker spaces that the city promotes. Madison, Wisconsin has had several hackathons. The city of New York has had several. Boston, really technology-driven cities, and cities with universities sometimes are the ones that are leading these movements. A hackathon is really a group of people coming together in a specific period of time, one day perhaps, to create out of different data sets they've been provided with applications. Part of the beginning of the Longmont movement is the fact that I came back from National League of Cities having taken this class, not expecting to be so overwhelmed by a new subject I knew nothing about. I came back and I talked in the council meeting the next week about this great class and about hackathons, and I said, well, why don't we do a hackathon in Longmont? And surprisingly, everybody said, okay. And we asked staff if we couldn't get a hackathon done and ready to go in as soon as possible, which ended up being March of 2013. We also had many people from the community, such as Scott Converse, who is a Longmont native who was involved in a makerspace and hackerspace in Denver, and we'd never seen Scott before. With all of his background in technology and innovation and working in different industries and companies, we had not ever had contact with him, and the only reason we've now developed a relationship with the technology segment of the community we've been missing is because of the hackathon. So the hackathon really opened up a lot of doors for the city, and I think that that was a revelation.
I was kind of surprised that Longmont had this kind of interest in it. I just thought I'd try. So I just went to meetup.com and I said, hey, is anybody interested? And put it out there, and we got an amazing response. The first meeting was about, I don't know, 8 or 9 people, and the second meeting was 20 people, and the third meeting was 25. And so every week we met for about 3 or 4 months. Everybody said, let's do it. So we said, let's create a founder level. Everybody throws in $300. Whoever throws in $300 to help fund rent and tables and stuff like that, insurance. Gets to be a founder, and I figured 5 or 6 people would join, and we had 25 people throw in $300. So bam, we had enough money to rent a place, and it just happened. And before we knew it, we were 10 members, then 20. It was about 10 a month. Right now, we're about 7 months in, and we have just under 60 members, paying members, and over 200 members on Meetup. Longmont has an amazing set of innate skills. The people here are phenomenally talented, and there are a lot of them, but they never had a place to congregate before, to be with their people, so to speak. So TinkerMill just kind of filled a void that was asking to be filled, and it has become very successful. We're the largest hackerspace in Colorado now, and in a matter of just a few months, because the people in Longmont are phenomenal. They're just amazing.
I think hackerspaces, because they are a community, they bolster communication between people. One thing I personally see wrong with a lot of people and a lot of society right now is that nobody talks. I'll see people that are sitting next to each other on their cell phones texting to each other because they won't turn and have a conversation with them. Hackerspaces, creator spaces really bolster that. Let's talk, let's work on this, let's solve a problem, let's get together and try and solve something. And while everybody jokes about meet spaces is more inefficient, there's something about being able to talk to a person that actually makes the transfer of information a lot faster. I know in the last couple of years that I've been involved with hackerspaces, Den Hack and TinkerMill here, I know I have become a much more, I won't say social person, but I've become much more comfortable talking to people and going out, and even just not just here, but going out in the workplace. Going and walking over to somebody and saying, hey, I need information, let's talk about this. It's a skill that's going by the wayside rapidly.
One of the very happy outcomes of the hackathon is that in that one-day event, we drew all these people that didn't maybe know about each other together in a space that they were collaborating or competing against one another in many cases for the prizes. And they then came to associate into a TinkerMill or a hackerspace. In some ways, we were surprised all the way around that this idea would take off. There were people in the community that were interested in it, and then they became interested in each other and started a new organization. One of the great aspects is the city started something that now has become a movement unto itself. And that is, I guess you could say it was surprising because it wasn't an experience that we had had before.
The average number of patents per 10,000 people in the United States is about 4. In Longmont, it's 45. So for every 10,000 people, of which there are 88,000 in Longmont, we do 45 patents per year, which is an order of magnitude larger than the U.S. population. So the amazing thing about that is that no one knows this about Longmont. Longmont has this massive creative community that knows how to build things, that knows how to create things, that knows how to create intellectual property that virtually no other city in America has got. And I think that TinkerMill sort of embodies a lot of that creativity.
The more creative people find out that are working in Longmont, maybe they're working in their basements or they're contract computer coders and never get out. This becomes like the water cooler, the civic water cooler, the open space water cooler for everyone, and it continues to draw more and more people in as they hear about it. And just like you might have a few engineers that get together when they might have been laid off from a major company to start a new company, having different people from different backgrounds come together in the TinkerMill allows that serendipitous communication that could actually spark a new idea or perhaps a new company. Or it could just simply be for fun. It could lead to companies, it could lead to patents, it could simply lead to other people saying there are cool things happening in Longmont and there are interesting people here that I moved here. I didn't realize these interesting people were here. And I think the TinkerMill almost is like the old time when Longmont was really an agricultural community and people would come into the feed store and exchange stories and how are things going in the field. The TinkerMill becomes almost that technology salon where people stand around and see what they're doing and then see what other projects they could do together.
The reason that the city has started helping us a lot is Longmont is fairly forward thinking, and they've realized that a lot of the cities that have hacker spaces have a strong startup community, especially in the tech industry. Look at a lot of the areas around Silicon Valley and a lot of guys doing tech in their garage. So the city knows that having a hacker space or a creator space or something like this in the city brings the tech industry. Whether it's a direct correlation or some indirect loop-de-loop thing that it happens. Also, we teach people. That's what we like to do, that's what we want to do. We have workshops where people can learn Arduinos, they can learn programming, they can learn soldering basic electronics, they can learn how to use a 3D printer, learn how to use a laser cutter. In fact, tomorrow night we've got one on how to use a welder. There's all kinds of skills like that we like to pass on that help the community. The more the community knows, the better the community feels about itself and the better a community it is. And again, the more business that comes in.
The one area that we'd like to see more growth in, we have a lot of technologists, a lot of highly technical people, is I think that there is a need to take the artist community and the technology community along with the business community. You take these three communities, and if you can get more of an even balance, I think that you see a lot more creative things kind of built into the DNA of the organization. You see a lot more fantastic products come out of a group of people that have artists in it. You basically do everything better when you have cross functions like that together. If you have business people, you also have ways of creating new businesses. So you incubate new businesses, create new jobs, create new types of products and services for Longmont. This is the kind of thing that if you have a group like this, you get it up to, like we are now, 50 to 100 people, amazing stuff starts to spin out of it. The other thing that I would like to see more of is more women. Right now we're probably 10% women, and it really, 50% of the population. Because if you have just a bunch of guys building stuff, they build things for just a bunch of guys. So it's real important that you have that as well. So we'd love to see more women join TinkerMill.
The other aspect of the TinkerMill is that the city now has a connection with people that would want to do volunteer work in the technology area for the city. We've got great volunteers who know a bit about gardening or rose tending, or help us when we do clean up, green up, pick up the trash, make the city look beautiful, read to children at the library, a whole number of things. But there are also volunteers who have these technology skills that what they love to do is the technology. And the city could really benefit from having those technology skills and them volunteer their talents with the city. I think that that's an unmined area right now that we still want to explore.
The kinds of support that we need really are support from the local business community, from the local entrepreneurs, engineering, art groups, the city itself, as well as the school organizations out there, because we can mentor students. We would love to, we're in the process now of trying to figure out how do we put together an after-school program when kids get out of school. Where do they go? Well, why not come here and build robots? Why not, make it so that there's a place for them to go that's fun. So having the schools be more aware and more engaged with organizations outside of the school would be really good.
The people we would prefer to come the most are younger children, say from about 12 years old on up to the 16, 17, 18 year mark. They're most influential at that point, and they learn a lot faster than the rest of us do, so we want to teach them everything and get them interested, get them learning about science, about art, about anything. Get their minds working, get them learning, get them trying to teach themselves.
Going through some of the stuff, the programs they've been doing, and they have been partnering with TinkerMill on some of these educational outreach efforts that the library's doing. Things like the electronics and spark fun stuff, and computer programming and 3D printing. A few weeks ago they had Teens After Dark, and the line was out the door. We have today they had the library program there, and there again it was a managed program the library's doing. They had 20 kids anywhere from 8 all the way up to 13, and they were totally focused on what was going on there. They were learning how to do all that same stuff again.
So we're allowing the TinkerMill to use the space. In return for the utilization of that space, they are providing services to the broader organization. My understanding of this is that they are so successful at the collaboration with the library right now, they're looking more long term. And so, again, my understanding is that collaboration will continue in the future.
Okay.
It started with the TinkerMill utilizing this space.
And I just like the way that we've gotten some cross-pollination between groups that didn't really have much connection before, so I think it's really a valuable effort. So.
And I would say on the TinkerMill's perspective, when we talk about the interaction, it just doesn't exist here. I know that we've talked to them about other information technology components and working with us in terms of development of applications and other pieces. So it's our interaction with the TinkerMill is not just the library.
Right.
I mean, we're having much broader conversations with them about working with the organization. So
I really think it's kind of an exciting notion that we could have an ongoing learning lab set up there too with, that would be very supportive of STEM in the school district, and especially since when schools are out in the summertime, there's really not a great place for kids to go and continue to work on those projects that they have during the school year that they, may just be interested in continuing. So I think it's nice.
We do primarily 3 things. We make tools available to people, like 3D printers and laser cutters and CNC machines and video bays and electronics and all kinds of different types of things. But we also make available knowledge, and we do that knowledge by teaching our members as well as the general public, and as a place to collaborate. So people can come in and they can say, hey, I have this problem, how do I solve it? What do you guys think? Because out of all the people at TinkerMill, there's almost for sure somebody who knows how to solve your problem. You may not have the skills, but I can almost guarantee you somebody else here does.
But having the access to those different pieces of equipment and the creativity, and then having other adults who share those interests, I think, again, it's just like having a successful recreational sports program, having the soccer leagues that are independent of the city, the TinkerMill and hackerspaces, that other kind of interest to fill the soul of kids that are interested in technology, or more than just technology. There's all these crossovers between technology and science, and a lot of art applications too, I think.
So in terms of working with other entities inside of the community, the city's a very important part of it, and the city's been very supportive. This originally started with me helping them put together a hackathon last year, and we're going to be helping with that again this year. So we have a lot of other types of relationships out there, and one of them, for instance, is with SparkFun. Our relationship is that our vice president and one of the founders of TinkerMill is a director of education, or the director of education for SparkFun. So as a result, we have a lot of SparkFun gear here. And that is because she supports us via her relationship with SparkFun, either getting stuff at very low or at no cost, and also helped us to become a hackerspace/distributor, which means we get substantial discounts for all of our members.
Having a flexible space where people in the community are coming together and offering what they have to either get a machine or get a piece of equipment or provide a type of lab space is really a unique feature. When you go to these big city conferences, you hear about all the stuff that's going on out there, and certainly we're not unique, but we have so many possibilities that are coming together that's very exciting, very, very exciting. It's kind of difficult sometimes if you're not really on the boots on the ground on the technology to understand, what hard drives are and why things are manufactured. If you're doing all the design work in this country, why it's all being manufactured in Malaysia or Thailand. But I think the important thing is creating the right environment that these companies or startups could be nurtured. It might simply be 5 or 6 people. And from what I've read, most companies will not be these huge monolithic companies. A lot of them will be quick and nimble and flexible. And when their first idea gets bought and they've developed a company from 2 people into 20 or 50, and it gets bought by the big corporation, then they go to the next idea that they have seed money for now. And I think that the idea of the TinkerMill also can be looked at as, again, going back to our agricultural roots, planting the seed of something new in the community that we haven't seen before. And I think that's the other exciting aspect of a TinkerMill.
Basically, this is a place for adults to come have fun and to learn, and there are no limits and there are no rules other than don't be an idiot, right? So although sometimes we're an idiot, TinkerMill allows people to experiment and to try new things and sometimes fail, which is totally all right. We like to push the envelope when we can, and that's the thing that I think is the coolest about this place, and that's what amazes me almost daily. If you're trying to get something done, we want people to think of TinkerMill as the first place to go see if they can find someone to do it. So if you want to prototype something, or you want to design a product, or you want to create a new great golf club, or I don't know, whatever you think up, we should go check on the TinkerMill guys, because maybe there's a co-founder for a business there. Maybe there's people there who would be interested in funding this kind of thing, because we have a bunch of business kind of people that do that kind of thing here. Maybe there's an engineer that can solve a problem that I haven't been able to solve before. You know, so that, you're absolutely right that being able to inventory effectively whatever one does here is a very powerful thing. It's just hard to do, but we're going to try. We're going to see if we can do that and become a center of talent for Longmont.
SparkFun has been around for 11 years. We just celebrated our 11th year anniversary in January. We started in our CEO's dorm room in college. So at the time, he was an electrical engineering student and wanted to, was trying to order parts online, and it was having a very hard time. The companies at the time that were suppliers, such as DigiKey and Mouser, they have catalogs of products that are about this big. They're the size of bricks. So if you want a red LED, there's 15 pages of red LEDs, and it's really hard to figure out exactly which one you're getting, if it's the right part that will actually work with other parts that you have, all that kind of stuff. So Nate had the brilliant idea of taking pictures of the components, putting the pictures, top, bottom, side views, all that kind of stuff, putting that on the website along with the data sheets for all the parts. And that actually, at the time, was kind of a revolutionary idea in the field. Nobody else was doing it, so that's sort of how we got started. We moved into a building down on 55th Street in, I want to say it was 2005, and then we moved into this building in 2008. So, and when we first moved into this building, we were over in the southeast upstairs. We've slowly since then taken over the entire building, and we're now moving in July-ish, hopefully, to a new building up on Diagonal Highway across from IBM. We teach classes on soldering, e-textiles, programming, working with Arduino, working with robots, PCB design, pretty much everything and anything that you could need to learn for making your own electronics or hacking. So we also travel around the country. Last year we did a national tour where we bought a giant red RV, if you guys saw it in the parking lot, and we threw a bunch of employees in there and drove around the country teaching classes all over the place at different libraries, hacker spaces, schools, fill in the blank, museums, all sorts of different places. This is the Porter Rotary phone. So this was one of the first products that actually put us on the map with some fashion industry people. So Nate, our CEO, got this brilliant idea. He found an old rotary phone, hacked into it. So he actually created an electronics board, and the inside turns this into a cell phone. So you can either hook up your Bluetooth connection to this, or actually put a SIM card in here and carry this around as your cell phone. Not very practical, but some people really like that. So this is our inventory room. This is all of the products ready and waiting to be shipped out to customers. So you can imagine there's a lot of different stuff in here. We sell about 2,700 products on the catalog now. We build about 500 of those in-house. So they're all on the shelves here, different books, kits, tools, everything and anything you can imagine. This is kind of a fun room for us employees because it's sort of like working in a toy store. You get to walk through the aisles and be like, oh, what's that fun thing I didn't know we sold? So kind of a fun place. Like I said, it's pretty quiet in here now, but usually you'll see people running around on skateboards picking orders. SparkFun has had skateboards as part of our culture ever since we've had hard floors that you could actually ride a skateboard on. When SparkFun first started making boards, we assembled everything by hand. So you can see over here we've got kind of a demo of how we used to do it. Masking tape on a piece of acrylic to run the stencils for the solder paste. We used to clean our boards using old crock pots. We have obviously improved since then. Like I said, if you guys remember in the classroom, that used to be our production space. This is all of our production space now. So you can imagine it would be much more crowded, much too tight to actually be a functional space. So basically how it goes now, we get giant panels of boards like you can see here, take them over, put them on the solder paste machine. Solder paste gets spread on them, and then we take these panels and put them in one of our pick and place machines. So we've got 3 different ones here. They take these reels of components and they robotically move and place the components on the board, so they can go a lot faster. This one places several thousand an hour, so we can produce a lot more boards very precisely. Works a lot better than having to do it by hand. Once the components are placed on all the boards, then they have to go through our 2 giant reflow ovens there, so that basically melts the solder paste and actually sticks the components to the boards and actually completing the build process. When I first started here, I started in tech support, so I used to talk to customers all the time, and I mean, the things that our customers come up with, it never ceases to amaze me. I think one of the first people I ever talked to, she was actually trying to put backpacks on peacocks. She was a student doing research on how peacocks migrate and behave, and so she was putting sensors into backpacks and putting them on peacocks. So I had to help her with that. We had a woman contact us in Australia. She was a reporter who's trying to work with the cops to bust a puppy theft ring. A couple years ago, we had a local kid come in, and I don't remember his name, but he had built up a glove that he could sign different letters, and then he had it wirelessly set up to a speaker so it would say the letters he was signing on his hand. One of my favorite customers was actually a guy who his newborn daughter had a breathing condition, and so they were supposed to buy all this fancy monitoring equipment, and it was something like $30,000 or something for the equipment. He was a software engineer, so he called us up, and for a couple $100 worth of parts, he hacked together a better system than what he actually would have paid, 10 times that for. So probably the best thing, like as far as education stuff, I think the one that we're all most proud of is we actually taught a 3-year-old how to solder. So that was pretty cool. It's cool too, like especially with the students and getting out to go out and teach and stuff like that, because everybody has different interests and they all come at this from different purposes. And some people want to do artistic things, some people want to do practical things, some people are doing it, because they want to help their buddy who's got, mobility issues, all that kind of stuff. So it's seeing what motivates people is the really awesome thing about the community.
My name's Joe. I'm a retired engineer scientist. I work for IBM. I live in Longmont, and I've been kind of stopping in here Tuesdays and Sundays off and on, trying to find something neat to do and to help people. I think the thing that struck me is that the amazing amount of talent that's here, and that if you need help with almost anything, all you have to do is ask, and somebody is happy to help you.
One of the interesting things about it is the variety of projects people like to do, and the range of them. Some are very high tech and some of them are very low tech, but it's all interesting kinds of projects and that they like to do, and they're going to get their hands wet and do them.
Well, the TinkerMill is kind of like big kids play.
We never grow up.
Yes.
I come to TinkerMill because, one, it gets me out of the house, and two, it lets me work on projects with people. It gives me access to tools that I wouldn't normally be able to have. Like a couple of nights ago, I was in here using the laser cutter, and I was etching some metal on the laser cutter that I wouldn't be able to afford a laser cutter in my garage. I like to teach. I don't know why, I do. So I like to come here and I like to show people how to do it. So if somebody has a question, how do I do this, how do I do that? I like to show them how to do it, and if I don't know how to do it, I want to go learn it with them.
My next door neighbor Steve came over and said, "Hey, there's a hackerspace starting in Longmont. We should go to the meeting." And this is when we were still meeting over at the library. Been involved ever since. It's been a lot of fun. The sort of stuff I've been doing is looking for people that can help me do things that I can't do on my own. And so I started up the Tinker Drones group, which is building a drone, and it hasn't flown yet, but probably 12 people have contributed to building something that will eventually fly, we think. That's why I come, so that I can find people who can do stuff I can't and help me do it.
I stopped into the new electronic surplus store up in North Longmont, and I was talking to the guy that runs it, and he said, "Hey, there's a new hackerspace here in Longmont." I walked by the door, and there was a meeting going on here, so I rattled the gate, and they came and opened the gate, and we started chatting. One of the things that I thought immediately when I came around here was, I can bring some of my larger projects in here that won't fit on my workbench at home, and build those up. And I've worked on several projects here, and they've been pretty satisfactory.
Well, my boyfriend was actually the first one involved, and he was telling me about it, and he said, "You should come because we need people in textile," and that's what more I'm into is the textile stuff. I'm on the board of directors here at TinkerMill. I'm also what they call the tool master. So I'm in charge of all the equipment and inventorying it and taking in donations. I definitely help with when people come to me if they're trying to do a fabric project or sewing or embroidery. They ask me and I'm more than willing to help. So my goal is to learn e-sewing, so electronic sewing. So sewing with circuits and lights and stuff that are washable. That's my goal, to be able to make an outfit that basically you can touch the outfit and it'll glow and then fade out.
I found about TinkerMill. My sister found it on Meetup and she thought it was really cool. So she came, then I came. I'm interested in chemistry and pretty much all sciences. I like to hear different people's ideas and projects that they're working on, see how I can help. I'm helping Jordan paint a 3D Settlers of Catan set. So he printed out all the parts and now we're making them pretty so that we can play Settlers of Catan. I've learned how to solder, how to use 3D printers, and I'm working on learning Blender so that I can print out things that I make myself. I'd really like to see it get a wet lab, and so we can do some chemistry, biology experiments. I'm kind of just excited to see where it goes, because we've got so many interesting people that are super thrilled to do all sorts of crazy fun stuff. So we'll just see what happens.
You're in the picture.
I know. You're supposed to be.
Actually, I found the whole thing on the internet. And there was calculations on the steps in the top. You know what I'm talking about now? And so each one's a different length. And a pendulum frequency is dependent only on the length of from the point where it pivots to the center of the ball, not the ball's weight. The ball's weight doesn't change the frequency. So each one of these has a different frequency. And if we start them all off at one time, one of them will be going about this frequency and the other one's going this frequency. And because they're all slightly different, if they start out in sync and then because they're different frequencies, they gradually go in and out of sync. That's why they have these different patterns. You have a snake pattern and pretty soon they're doing like this and whatever all the pattern is. So it's all in the length of each of the pendulums relative to each other. Okay, when are you going to make one?
We've got everything set up. We're going to adjust I'll let you go ahead and adjust the regulator. So the key is to unscrew your regulators till they're loose. Okay, so do the same thing with the acetylene.
Okay. Now, we open this first, right?
No, you open this up. And so this is the primary. This is what the tank pressure is. That's how you know.
This primary and this is the outlet?
Exactly. So, and with that, you just need half a turn on the acetylene rather than a turn and a half on the oxygen.
Okay.
Always, always, never in reverse. Give it a strike. Adjust it so you got a nice little cauliflower end like that. It's a good start. We're bringing that blue flame right back to the inner cone there. Does everybody see that? You're going a little bit too fast there in a linear motion. So always don't outrun that puddle. It just kind of follows you as you're moving in circles rather than side to side.
Like a dip.
Yeah, there you go. Nice job. All right, so when you're turning it off, oxygen first, perfect, and then, nice job, all right. Yeah, good looking, there's a really good looking section in there.
If a chicken and a half laid an egg and a half in a day and a half, how many pancakes does it take to shingle a doghouse? We have a parts list.
Adult super.
Firing it up.
There we go. Turning off.
Hi, my name's Jordan here at TinkerMill, and I'm going to go through everything to replicate this little part on the 3D printer. Alright, so we have already taken our measurements here, and we're going to use those and put into SolidWorks to recreate the part.
What I learned during my journey is the maker movement could be considered an extension to the do-it-yourself culture, which many may associate with home repair and construction. But typically, the maker culture includes people interested in engineering, home economics, jewelry making, arts and crafts, woodworking, electronics, metalworking, computer programming, game development, robotics, and even crafting beer and wine. The higher tech cultures emphasize the use of advanced tools, such as computer numerical control devices and 3D printers. The maker culture encourages learning through doing in a social environment. This has attracted the interest of educators who might be concerned about the disengagement of students in the field of technology, science, engineering, and mathematics in the school environment. The rise of the maker culture is responsible for the increased number of maker spaces, otherwise known as hacker spaces, of which there are approximately 1,800 around the world. A hacker space is a place where the public can go to make things. A well-outfitted hackerspace will have most, if not all, of the tools necessary for an individual to build or fabricate his or her idea or invention. At most hackerspaces, the public is welcome, but paying members have advantages, like 24/7 access. Not only do hackerspaces provide the space and tools, they feel responsible to teach classes in how to make things and how to use the tools. As the maker culture becomes more popular, hacker spaces are becoming more common in cities in the United States. Another aspect of the maker movement is the idea of open design. This is the concept of sharing one's design with the world, whether it is a physical design or software. The maker movement has the potential to bring technical and non-technical people together in a world of being creators, some just as a hobby, while others could end up making products and starting a business.
So it's hard to believe it's been a year since I started exploring the maker movement and discovered the maker space here in Longmont called the TinkerMill. I got a chance to meet some of the folks who are members and friends of this makerspace and was able to participate as well as observe some of the activities. One of the problems I've had throughout the years has been to find people of like mind. I found that the TinkerMill is a place where one can find people with the same interests, whether that interest be in the arts or sciences. Since I'm now a member of the TinkerMill, I can say, y'all come down and see us sometime. Check us out on the web and meetup.com. You'll be glad you did.